I'm joined today by Bjarte Reve, who is the CEO of Nansen Neuroscience Networks and a partner at Considium Consultants, and has deep expertise in biotech, and spends a lot of time right now thinking about how we can move from an idea that might have come out of academia, often is coming out of academia, and spotting what becomes a credible potential biotech company out of that. So welcome, Bjarte. And what are your thoughts about that? What are the keys to discovery of discoveries that could actually bring something to the world?
Well, thank you, Thomas. So we've seen in Norway and in Nordic countries that there's so much potential out of academic research, but there's life science research, but only a few of the innovations actually make it into society, to a new medicine or a new company, etc. So we decided a few years ago to do something about this. So together with the University of Oslo and another university in Norway called NTNU in Trondheim, Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, which is quite renowned, and now also from this year, Copenhagen University, we've created a school basically. So it trains life science entrepreneurs. They have their PhDs background, or they can be clinician working in the hospital, or they have another background, and they're trained by seasoned entrepreneurs and VCs of how they can take their research and bring it into society and start a company. So it's been quite a nice experience and we've done this for three years now.
What is the biggest challenge about that? Is it that we're definitely talking about very intelligent people. They have a PhD in things that people like me have tough time even understanding the basics of. But is it the conceiving of that as a business? What are the challenges?
It's a totally new world to them. So they actually have to, it's almost like learning a new language when you're adults. And we give them this kind of the grandfather test when they first day. So think when you're old and you have your grandchildren and they ask you, what did you contribute to as a life science researcher? And then you have to explain them. And many of them have to say, well, I became a professor, or I published all this. Or you can say, I became a professor, but I also started a few biotech companies because I learned how I could take my research and create a new medicine or something new that can help society. And most of them choose the latter. They want to do both. So, but there's resistance in the system, though, quite a lot, Thomas. So we actually had to start a professor course as well, because these are the younger, talented researchers. And when they came back all excited to the universities or the hospital about what they've learned, and then, the old guard said, oh, that's nice, but just go ahead as you've been doing from before, right? So we started out and we needed to change that. So that's why we actually also now have a professor course. So we put their bosses in the same, in a special course, so they can try to change the culture as well.
So it's, I love that we have a teaching of a professor course for the professors, rather than them being, they go back to being the students.
That's right. And it's been quite, it's been working out well. We train now on the main course is about 250 researchers and clinicians, and then perhaps 40 professors for the last couple of years. So it's so we're quite excited about it, and some of them have started companies, of course, and some also learn much more about how to work with pharma, how to work with investors. So it's not that we want all of them to become entrepreneurs, but many of them learn how to interact with the business community, and it speeds up the process basically.
When you say the language, and I love that analogy, what is the grammar or that they're most challenged with? What are the big challenges of learning? What are the challenges of that language when you're coming at it from an academic point of view? Is it recognizing a need? Is it focusing on, because I'm speculating here, but as a researcher, I have my particular interest, but is that particular interest going to have deep applicability to the world? Or if I shift it by 10 degrees, it suddenly becomes a challenge the world is facing?
I think the main difficulty is that they can't have precise answer. They're used to looking for the precise answers, like in life science research. So they're trained of this is how it is, and they kind of they're also trained of replicating the experiment, right, in other labs, etc. You need to replicate it. As you know, in business, that's not the case. So you need to go with your best knowledge, what and build a business case. And building a business case is super different from working in a lab. So it's really a new world to them. And our teaching method is putting them together with people for different backgrounds. So it's also kind of expands them a bit, because they're used to talking to neuroscientists, cancer researchers to cancer. You know how it is, and we all mix it up. So you can't just talk to your pals. You need to learn from others. So that's the model we work with.
Which is an interesting other angle to it. So there is not just the research science to real world application barrier, but even on the research science thing, there's a lot of individual silos that are maybe not talking with each other. Very true. Yeah. So what are some of the examples of where you succeeded? What are some examples of what you say where you overcome a barrier?
There's
And how do they start? What is the progression from idea to something?
Yes, the progression is typically that they're really excited about a project. We actually have some vaccine researchers at the project at the school. We've had quite a lot of cancer researchers, neuroscientists, etc. And they don't really see the commercial potential, many of them. So one of the things is to help them with the role guidance from role models. We put in the course with the guidance from people from the VC community that show them this really has potentially, if you do the right steps in developing a business plan and setting up a business, this can have a huge potential for society, for patients, and then they get quite excited and they put in a lot of energy. And so we use the working groups in the school to further the project. So they basically get their own consultants while they're at school, and then when they get to the next phase, we give them experienced mentors from the business community that helps them to put it forward and actually help them give advice how to get financing and set up the company. So it's kind of like you give them a bit of support all the way until you get into the they can start a business, or if they find someone that will want to invest in the idea and develop it by themselves, right?
And what is the biggest challenge for them? What is the biggest step to take?
It's getting out of the comfort zone. They are so comfortable and trained on being a scientist, and that's really what they want to do. So it's the mindset that you can be a successful scientist, but you can still create a company, and you're not going to lose your academic credibility by doing that. Many people think that it's kind of going over to the dark side. They actually use that picture if they go into the business community. So no, it's not the dark side. It can actually help you get
That's fascinating, because on the one hand you can say, oh, that's the dark side, and you can see, oh, okay, that's touching the real world. But on the other hand, if you're not touching the real world, that amazing idea you've had and worked on for 9 years is not going to change people's lives.
That's very true. Yes. So, but this is how academia works in many countries, and I don't think the Nordic countries are more conservative than others. I think this is the case in most countries, perhaps with the exception for the US. I think the culture there is a bit different, but yeah. So and then we also do financial incentives so the university has put on a program that's modeled after Stanford. Spark is the program called, and it's quite kind of, so the best projects coming out of this, they get evaluated by a committee of experienced entrepreneurs, and then you get funding for furthering your project, right? So it's kind of like seed money coming and helping you on to the next stage, and then quite some of them start companies after that. So that's kind of the value stream we've set up for furthering entrepreneurs into life science and building life science companies.
Okay, waiting to hear now the examples. What's come out? What's come through this process?
Yes, so we have one very. I can't go into all the details about it, but I have. It's a surgeon, and he's a super talented team around him. at our national hospital, coming out of the program, and he has found a new way of surgery for obesity that's much more less invasive and less side effects, and he almost has the same results as the mainstream obesity surgery today, as you know, is kind of reducing the size of the stomach by
bariatric surgery.
Yes,
using
that can have like a serious side effects usually often. So that's why many people don't. So he's found a way of doing this much more invasive, less invasive, and with less side effects. So he's testing this clinically now, and so that's one thing that's coming out. And there's quite some interest, you can imagine, in markets about this, and also from investors for when he's finished with the clinical kind of the clinical trials he's doing. Another company that's come a little bit further, but they're still early stage company, it's a talented team from Spain and Norway and Sweden and China. And they met at the School of Health Innovation. They're building a company of a more effective IVF treatment for couples that need assistance for getting babies, basically. So they're also talking to the larger pharma companies for if they want to license the technology or bring it into the world market. So that's just two examples.
Fascinating. And both of these you found at the early stage through the program, through building up their knowledge and abilities.
That's true. Yes.
Great. What are some of the trends you're seeing right now or that are most exciting and most fruitful to look for? Those obviously touch two elements of it, but more in
the market, right? So yeah. Well, I would say for Norway and the Nordics, which I know most, it's a lot about vaccines. So the field that you're also involved in, and I have one company that I know the founders, and they're now a listed company. They partnered with Genentech, and it's called the Vaccibody. The company, you might know about it, but it's targeted DNA vaccines. So they specifically target the antigen presenting cells. That's kind of the idea. So you want to take a look at it, Vaccibody with C, two C's, and so that's one company, and they're also coming out of the university system quite some years ago, right way before we started the school. But they have been going slowly for a while, but now it's really pivoting up. And there are also a few other vaccine companies coming out of our market.
So this is sort of in reaction to COVID. So vaccines are big. What other categories are people looking at right now?
I would say also my own field has a nice let's say growth now, and that's in neuroscience or brain diseases, because that's kind of like the last frontier after there's so much good going on. I used to work in oncology, so there's so much improved treatment in cancer the last 10 years that has come out, but now the pharma companies are actually, and we really like that, they're actually looking for the smaller companies to buy into. It's more in neuroscience and MS, even Biogen, the large American company, they have some interesting things coming for Alzheimer's now. They're also part of our network. And so I think you'll see in dementia, Alzheimer's, in multiple sclerosis in the next couple of years, there'll still be a large improvement in new types of treatments. I'm not going to say there's going to be a cure. No one can say that for sure at all. But I think you will see that you can, especially in MS, but also potential in dementia, you'll see that life quality will be much better. So it's more of living with the disease and than curing it. But that's can be super important for a lot of people.
Interesting. So basically, you feel like we're hitting a critical mass. The oncology phase, which we're not there yet, but they're certainly we're fundamentally different now than we were 10 years ago, is now about to hit brain science.
Yes, actually, yes. And we have two Nobel Prize winners in our network in the Nansen Neuroscience, Edvard and May-Britt Moser in Trondheim. They won Nobel Prize in 2014 for the grid cells in the brain, but they used to be just super basic researchers and just wanted to do their basic research. But now they're thinking, well, should our legacy be the Nobel Prize, or should we actually work on even finding a treatment? So now they're teaming up with, and I can't reveal the names, but they're teaming up with some large pharma companies to see how they can put their knowledge into developing treatments for brain diseases.
Fascinating. So tell me briefly, what is the Nansen Neuroscience Network?
It's a public-private organization partnership. So universities, hospitals, biopharma companies team up together for creating more trust among the different people that are involved, and finding collaborative projects. So you can kind of speed up from you're in the lab to you have something in the market.
Right. So basically, it's an acceleration in the neuroscience sphere.
Yes, that's true.
We're seeing such great. Okay, fantastic. Bjarte, thank you so much for your time. Fascinating conversation.
Thank you, Thomas. Very nice to see you, even only virtually, but nice to see you. So thank you.
Thank you.